This edition of Mac Voices is supported by ScreenCastsOnline, your source for new Mac and iOS tutorials every week. To learn more and for a 14-day free trial, visit ScreenCastsOnline.com. And by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome back to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, he's done it again. We have another Take Control book by Mr. Joe Kissell. This time it's Take Control of DEVONthink To Go, 3rd edition. Joe, good to see you as always.
Always nice to be here, Chuck.
So, Joe, this one seems to be a little strange. DEVONthink, we'll get into the program in a minute, but DEVONthink 2, but this is the 3rd edition. Yeah. Usually we have those numbers match up. What's going on?
It's weird in just all kinds of ways. You know, back, I don't even remember when we did the 1st edition, but years and years ago, DEVONthink had just come out fairly recently with, I mean, not immediately, but fairly recently with version 2. And that was a really huge upgrade. And we wanted to make sure, we were writing a Take Control book about it, we wanted to make sure people understood that this wasn't about the old version of DEVONthink, it's about the new version of DEVONthink. So originally we were going to call it Take Control of DEVONthink 2. Then, you know, after some further discussions, we sort of realized, well, this, you know, DEVONthink is a huge, huge app. I mean, there's an endless number of things you can do with it. This is going to be a Take Control book. And at that point, you know, again, way back when, we were thinking maybe this will be 100, 150 pages. And I can't say that in 100 or 150 pages, you will be able to take control of DEVONthink. That's too much. That's over-promising. So we decided to scale back expectations a little bit by calling it Take Control of Getting Started with DEVONthink 2. So at that point, we had this like really crazy long title, but it was fine. The book, you know, sold very, very, very well. We sold a lot of copies. Devon Technology sold a lot of copies. Everybody seemed to like it. And we thought, you know, back then we thought, well, hey, in a couple of years, we'll be doing Take Control of DEVONthink 3 and DEVONthink 4. Well, as it turns out, DEVONthink 3 is still in the future, but the people at Devon Technologies have still been very, very, very busy, and they are constantly adding features and changing interface and improving performance, doing all this kind of stuff. So after, you know, a couple of years after the first book came out, we realized, oh, we need a 2nd edition. So it became Take Control of Getting Started with DEVONthink 2, 2nd edition, and that was more cumbersome. Now they've made still more big changes because the book hasn't been updated up until now. It hasn't been updated since 2012, and so much has changed in DEVONthink since then. So we really just needed a 3rd edition. So it's now Take Control of Getting Started with DEVONthink 2, 3rd edition. And you know, if I had known then what I know now, I probably would have pushed for a much more compact title. And at that future time, when DEVONthink 3 is released, and it will happen, they're working on it. When that happens, I believe that we will have a new Take Control book about it, and I believe that it will have a very much shorter title. But anyhow, this is the 3rd edition of the book on DEVONthink 2, which is now up to version 2.9.2, I think. So, I mean, they've had many, many releases, and it just keeps getting better and better. But I reach this point where, like, the app keeps changing and the book doesn't change, and there's this increasing mismatch between reality and my book. And I want to tell people, no, the book is canonical, the book is correct. Anything that doesn't match is a bug in DEVONthink, you know, because clearly, you know, my book is. But
sacred is the word you're looking for,
right,
Jeff.
Sacred. But at a certain point, you know, people don't buy that anymore, and I gotta say, all right, I'll update the book. So, and it was, man, it It was a monster job, let me tell you. Monster job updating this book.
Yeah, this is one of the larger Take Control books, coming in at, I think, 220 pages.
Thereabouts. As we are recording this, we are in advance of the release, and the book is still being edited. And I don't know the exact final page count yet, but it's in the 220-ish range. And honestly, there were topics where I'm like, oh, all right, this chapter is 15 pages long. I'm just going to stop. I could write another 20 pages in this chapter, but like, I have to at some point live up to the title of getting started with. By the way, so Devon Technologies has their own manuals, their own instruction, user guides, whatever you call them, and they're available in PDF and EPUB and MobiPoc, just like ours. And if you take the complete PDF manual for DEVONthink plus the complete PDF manual for DEVONthink To Go, which is their iOS app. My book is longer than both of those put together. So it's actually more detailed than the official help manual, which makes me feel even weirder about calling it Getting Started With. There you go.
So let's put a frame around this to start with, because I don't think, for those of us that know DEVONthink, we know how powerful it is, how amazingly powerful it is. And, as an endorsement of some kind, that scan snap back there, as soon as I scan something, it goes right into DEVONthink. So,
yeah, I have one of those right down here. Yeah.
Yep. But a lot of people may not be familiar with DEVONthink. So what is DEVONthink, and why should they care at this point?
So I have kind of a whole topic in the book that tries to answer that exact question. What is this, and what do I use it for? And I sort of assume if you're reading the book, you must have the app, and if you paid money for the app, you probably know what it is. So the book is starting from a little bit of a different place than maybe we are here. There are many ways to describe it. So one way of looking at it is that it is a snippet keeper. And there are lots of snippet keepers out there. Apple's Notes app is a snippet keeper. Evernote is, Microsoft OneNote, Yojimbo. Like, the snippet keepers come in all shapes and sizes. Some of them are free, some of them are expensive. I mean, Tinderbox, even more expensive than DEVONthink. You could think of that as a snippet keeper. And by snippets, I just mean any piece of information that you run across that you want to save. It could be a URL, it could be a PDF, it could be just a note that you write about something, it could be some selection of text out of an ebook that you're reading, or out of, off of a web page, or just a list you want to keep. Anything, just like random stuff. Everybody, well, not everybody, but I think a lot of people want to have just some repository where they can keep all the stuff they want to remember in one place. So that is one way of describing DEVONthink. It can absolutely be used in that way. Another way of thinking about it is it's an information management tool that goes really way beyond snippets. So it can do that, but it can also do a lot more. If you wanted to, you could almost use it as a replacement for the Finder. I mean, you could store all of your documents and files of all kinds in there, and you can see them, read them, search them, sort them, tag them, label them. You can view ebooks, you can view graphics, you can edit many different kinds of documents, all this stuff right within DEVONthink. And DEVONthink's tools for doing all that stuff, for sorting and finding things, are way better than what's in the Finder. So that's another way of looking at it. But it also, it's a great tool for researchers. If you are in academia and you're researching some topic you need to write a paper about, a lot of people who are doing religious studies, or writing books of various kinds, whether it's novels or technical books, have just tons of research. I have interviews. I have, maybe they're written interviews, maybe they're emails, maybe they're recorded audio, video, maybe it's PDFs that I've accumulated, just information that I need to have at my fingertips as I am writing the thing that I'm writing. And DEVONthink gives you a great way to pull all that stuff together, and not just like put it in a big bin. But what's really cool about it is it has these artificial intelligence features that lets it figure out where a certain document belongs. So it'll actually read the text of the document and say, well, based on the different word counts and so forth, this is most similar to other documents in this group. So I'm going to either put it there automatically if you want, or suggest that you put it there, or show you the top X number of matches for where I think it ought to go. So it can help you find connections between things that you didn't even know existed and take a lot of the manual effort out of sorting stuff. And as you pointed out, I mean, for anyone with a paperless office or who wants to have a paperless office, DEVONthink is really fantastic, because the Pro Office version, it does OCR. So I do what you do. I put papers into the scanner, I push the button, and they pop up in DEVONthink, and they are fully searchable. And I just say, okay, put this where it goes, and it goes there. So it's whatever, I still get a lot of paper mail, which I wish I didn't, but I do. And so pretty much all my mail goes into here, and then it's all searchable and really easy to find. So there are other ways of doing that, but I find DEVONthink to be a really powerful and really convenient way. So I could go on, but it's a tool for managing information that you can use in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it's. I was anxious to hear kind of how you answered the question, because it is sort of hard to wrap your head around. A word processor, you kind of know what you're doing. Page layout, again, similar but different. DEVONthink, interesting that you would call it a snippet keeper, and I think that's definitely valid. I guess I never think of those as snippets of information, at least the way I use it. I tend to see them as my paperless documents, and it helps me organize them and find them again, which
Sure.
is sort of the whole purpose.
There are many ways to think about it and many ways to use it, and they're all valid.
Yeah. So we just had some major revisions, hence the third edition to the Getting Started with DEVONthink 2, which we already covered. But what are the big the hot new things in DEVONthink at this point that prompted the revision to the book?
Well, there were really two things. The first thing, and really the thing that I am probably most excited about, is the syncing. So it already had the capability to sync with other Macs and with iOS devices, but candidly, the old syncing capability sucked. I put as positive a spin on it as I could in the book before, the previous edition, but honestly, it just wasn't good. It was really, really painfully slow. And partly as a consequence of being really slow, it was very common to come up with conflicts where a document is changed in both places in between syncs. And so now it's like, oh, which one do you want? And it's really irritating. And there were different ways to sync. You could sync directly, you could sync via Dropbox or whatever. But some of those, none of them worked great. And when they failed, they sort of failed in different ways. So, Dropbox didn't work well for one reason, but direct syncs didn't work well for another reason. And I was frustrated that it was always this effort to get my various copies of DEVONthink on different devices to have the same information in them. So they Devon Technologies agreed. It wasn't just me saying this. All their customers were saying, thanks for syncing, but couldn't we do better? So they've been working for years on totally replacing the sync engine. And they sort of went down a certain path, and then they realized, due to technological constraints, that method isn't going to work. We have to now scrap that and start over again in a completely different direction. So it's been a really long and painful road for them, but it's done, and it's good. It's really, really good. I now, it's like every time I sit down at one of my Macs, or stand as the case may be, I open DEVONthink, and I have to retrain myself. I don't expect the right things to be there, because I know I added that particular document on the other Mac or on my iPhone or whatever, and I'm always like, okay, now I've got to figure out how to do all my fancy, networking stuff to get them to sync up again. And I just no, it's there. The document is there already. It's where it's supposed to be. It's everywhere. So great. So you can sync directly, over Ethernet or Wi-Fi if your two devices are on the same network. You can sync by way of Dropbox, which is great. There are few little tricks and gotchas there, but basically it works really great. That's what I'm doing now, syncing by way of Dropbox. You can sync via iCloud Drive, but only Mac to Mac. You can't sync Mac to iOS using iCloud Drive due to iOS limitations. If you have access to a WebDAV server, which includes Box and CloudMe, you can sync to you can use either of those as a sync store, as a central repository that the different devices sync to. Anyway, so depending on your situation, your preferences, you have lots of choices. Everything can be strongly encrypted, which of course it really should be. It's secure, it's fast, it's been really, really reliable for me, and it's just so much simpler to set up. You no longer have to say, all right, every document that I want to sync, I have to drag to this special group. No. It'll sync everything. The only choice you have to make, which is, I should say that the getting ahead of myself. The only choice you have to make if you are using an iOS device is whether you want to sync just the metadata, like just the names and icons and created date and stuff like that, or if you want to sync the entire contents. And if you want to sync the entire contents of all your files and you have enough storage space on your iOS device, then that's fine. If you want to sync just the metadata, that capability is one of the pro features that you'll pay an extra $5 for as an in-app purchase. But I mean, well worth it in my opinion. But you can, it's very flexible. You can override it for one particular database or one particular group and say, I want this one to sync all the time, or I want everything to sync all the time, or I want everything to be just metadata. It's very flexible.
Okay, so if you said it, I missed it.
Okay.
Because I know there are a lot of options here. So if I'm syncing back and forth, especially for my iOS devices, and I would think if you use Dropbox, this would be the case. But if you're using any of the other options, are they syncing the actual documents to your device, or are they doing sort of like Dropbox does in the Dropbox app, where I've got the list of my documents and things, but they're not actually stored there. If I want them, I have to hit the button and download it, which is usually not a problem, but at the same time, it's not technically on my device.
So this is one of those little qualifications. It's not really a gotcha. It's just you ought to know about this kind of thing.
Right.
So what I tell people is that when you set up a database, just basically a big container that's going to hold all your stuff, and you can put that any place you want on your disk. I say it's really not the best idea to put that container in your Dropbox, even though Dropbox does sync all of its stuff amongst your different devices. The problem is that this is a database, and databases have really a lot of granular syncing kind of going. It's not just the files. It is the files, but it's more stuff. And Dropbox wasn't designed to be fast enough or robust enough syncing this kind of thing on the file level. So what happens is if you just put the whole thing in your Dropbox and you sync between devices, if DEVONthink is actually running on both devices at the same time, your databases can get weirdly out of sync and can have all these errors and stuff. So I say, no, just don't do that. Forget about that. Yes, we're going to use Dropbox if you want to, but just stick your database on your disk someplace. Now, you set up Dropbox syncing. And when you do that, DEVONthink creates a special folder inside your Dropbox folder, inside the apps folder called DEVONthink Packet Sync. And in that folder is where it does the real syncing. It does the low-level syncing of what it calls transactions, so that this is on a granular enough level and fast enough that it can keep up with multiple copies of DEVONthink being open at the same time. Now, if that's all you do, then you will have 2 copies of all your data on your disk, which you don't want. So what you do is you go into Dropbox's preferences, into Selective Sync, and you just turn off that folder. Now, it really just takes a few clicks, and I explain where to click in the book. You don't have to do that if you want to have 2 copies of your data, taking up space on your disk, but I don't want that, so I recommend doing that. Now, the interesting thing is, because DEVONthink is talking directly to Dropbox in the cloud. It is not just saving stuff to a folder on your disk and letting Dropbox handle it. No, no. It is directly using Dropbox's APIs to talk to Dropbox directly. You don't actually have to have Dropbox installed on your Mac at all. You do not need the Dropbox app. You don't need to have all that other stuff. You don't need to have any of that stuff. You can install just DEVONthink, authenticate with Dropbox, go through the procedure, and it'll sync directly to the cloud. You're going to still have your local copy, of course, of your database, but the sync store, as they call it, will be up in the cloud. It's all going to be updated automatically, and from there, all of your other devices can get at it. So it's, as I say in the book, there are a lot of things that take a lot more words to describe than, it's like, it takes 5 minutes to describe, but 10 seconds to actually do,
Right.
It's kind of like that. It's really simple once you actually do it and set it up, but it's a little weird to explain.
Well, and we've had this conversation about syncing with some of the other books. That syncing is difficult, and syncing doesn't always work the way you kind of expect it to work, or you would think it would work. See,
Yeah.
I can't even talk
Yeah.
about it. I get confused. Yes, so I appreciate the explanation, because it does sometimes help to understand just what's going on and why, and then, like you say, then okay, fine, it's doing its thing, and I don't have to worry about it. But it can get weird. It can get very weird. Okay, so that syncing is the first big thing. So we have a second big thing.
So the second big thing I sort of alluded to, again, there was already a mobile app, DEVONthink To Go, but just as syncing previously was there but kind of sucked, the mobile app was there but it sucked. And I hate to say this, because like I love the product and I love the company, and I wrote the book about it, but the previous version of DEVONthink To Go was honestly, it was so frustrating to me that I just never used it. I wanted to use it, I needed to use it, but I couldn't because it wouldn't do what it needed to do reliably. So they did the same thing that they did with the syncing, which is like, okay, we're not going to try to fix it. We're going to throw it out and start over and make a new thing that is really elegant and beautiful and powerful. And when I started playing with the new DEVONthink To Go, same name, totally different product. I was frankly shocked, because what I thought I was going to get was basically something that will show me on my iPhone, a few documents that I've said I want to sync with it. Let me maybe, create plain text documents, maybe capture some things from Safari, but not a whole lot else. What I got was really a mini version of DEVONthink. It doesn't do everything that the desktop version does, but I feel like it kind of does sort of 75% of it. Like you can't take a scanned document and OCR it with DEVONthink To Go on your iPhone. There are other apps that can do that. DEVONthink To Go can't. But it has the full PDF annotation capability. In fact, the mobile app has better annotation tools and more annotation tools than the desktop version does. You can edit rich text documents and formatted notes and Markdown, and the syncing is really great. It's really fast, whether it's a direct sync or WebDAV or Dropbox. You can capture, so there's now a share sheet extension. So basically any app that supports the iOS share sheet, you can now use that to get stuff into DEVONthink To Go. All of a sudden I feel like I can do all, short of dealing with scanned documents, which probably going to go through my desktop scanner anyway, I can do pretty much everything I need to do in the mobile app. I can move things around. I can replicate, I can duplicate, I can copy, rename, do any of this kind of stuff. And then by the time I've walked over to my Mac to look at it, all those changes have already synced and they're there too. So I love the fact that I can throw a bunch of stuff in my inbox, go on vacation, and, sit in an easy chair by the pool or whatever, and I think I want to categorize this over here and I want to move this over here. And just, when I have some free time and it's easy, and then I get back and it's all there where it's supposed to be on my Mac. So it's a good tool, and I'm very, very happy to have it.
You're going to get emails just about your vacation activities. And the sad thing is I do exactly the same kind of thing on vacation. It's terrible. It's like you can't get away because it's stuff you want to do and you need to do. And
well, there's work and then there's work. Like you can't really see here, I have a very, very messy office. And I have so many piles of stuff that need to be dealt with in one way or another. And I'm always, this is, I call this the paragraph factory. This is, I go to work and I make paragraphs, and I have so many of them that I have to make. I'm always behind. And so when I have like an afternoon that all I have to do is, categorize, scan documents, or, some maintenance task like that, I feel like that's fairly relaxing. That's as good as being on vacation, when I don't actually I have a deadline that's tomorrow. So,
as you said, you can go on, and believe me, I know how you can go on and on about DEVONthink, because it just is one of those tools that it seems to have everything. You just have to find it. Any other things that we should maybe pay particular attention to or make folks aware of before we wrap this up?
The program is really changing very rapidly. It now takes advantage of sort of all the latest stuff, share sheets I mentioned on iOS, but also the sharing extensions on OS X, both for getting stuff in and for getting stuff out. The browser extension has been improved. The scanning capabilities have been improved. Things like Markdown support, that's relatively new, and that's useful. I like having that. There are, some changes to like AppleScript support, stuff like that. This new edition of the book felt like sort of 1,000 tiny things and 2 big things. So I had to replace every graphic in the book. And there are hundreds, I don't know, especially all these little, like tiny little icons because it has all these toolbars and things. I took so many screenshots for this book. So, and every single one of them had to change. So there are a lot of really little things like that. And then totally redoing the information on the syncing and scanning, the syncing and the mobile app. Those are really the biggest things. And most of all, it gives me a sense of, I guess, a little bit of sense of calm that finally reality and the book are back in alignment, more or less. I mean, the software is going to keep evolving. They'll go out of sync. Sooner there will be a new book eventually, but I get to enjoy that moment, just like I briefly enjoyed that moment with 1Password when the book and the software matched up. They don't anymore, but I like being at that point where I feel confident recommending this book to people, knowing that what they see in the book is what they're going to get in the software.
And with DEVONthink, I'm not going to say you absolutely have to have this book, but it's going to help a lot, because I know when I started implementing a paperless office strategy a long time ago, your paperless book was imperative, but also the DEVONthink book was imperative, because I decided, okay, that's where I wanted to go, so that I have the option to do something with it later. So I've added I've added a few tools to my tool belt within DEVONthink as far as how to use them, but I also know there's a lot more there. So if and when the time comes, I've got the stuff in the right program to do things.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where the more you use it, the more valuable it becomes. For example, if you're just starting from a blank slate, like empty database, no documents, you start putting documents in, well, it's on you to categorize those the way you want them. You maybe want to have a really complex hierarchy of folders, or as DEVONthink calls them, groups, or maybe you want to use tags, or maybe you want to use both. But initially you decide how you want to categorize things. But once you have sort of some stuff in there, enough, like you have 8 or 10 documents in each folder, let's say, enough that DEVONthink can kind of notice the similarities, you can just kind of say, okay, put this where it is most, with the things it's most similar to. And the reason I mention this is that in iOS 10, which obviously is still in beta as we record this, maybe not by the time it's released, I don't know, in Apple Mail, when you're reading a message and you want to file it, and you tap the file button, and you expect that the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to pick the mailbox you wanted to go into. But for me, about 75% of the time, I tap the file button. It's like, oh, it's recommending the mailbox that I was going to put this into. It knows me. Isn't that great? Apple Mail knows that I want to put this sort of message in my Take Control mailbox, and it knows I want to put this sort of message in my Money mailbox or whatever, and it notices similarities like that. And I'm like, thank you for thank you for paying attention to me. And so I think this is the kind of thing that people are going to start getting really used to. And if you would like to have that sort of thing for documents on your Mac too, DEVONthink is really the way to go.
As I said, I use it. I use it, at least a few times a week, because I try not to scan documents every night. But it's invaluable, because I have yet to lose a document that I have put into DEVONthink, and not only do I not lose them, but they're easy to find.
Yeah,
and I love that. In fact, I've quit filing. I probably shouldn't tell anybody this, but I quit filing, the paper copies in any logical order. It's just like, okay, now they come in. The only thing that might be said is the pile is kind of chronological, because that's how they came in. Other than that, it's just, I figure it's a waste of time, because I've got them all electronically filed in DEVONthink.
That's how it should be.
Yes, sir.
And don't forget your backups.
Oh, don't you worry. Yeah, that's like gold in this case. So, of course, Take Control of DEVONthink To 3rd edition can be had.
Getting started with. Yes.
Getting started with. God darn. Okay.
I know.
Let's do that again.
Right.
Take Control of Getting Started with DEVONthink To 3rd edition is available on TakeControlBooks.com.
It is.
And it's by Mr. Joe Kissell, who spends a ridiculous amount of time on this stuff, so you don't have to.
That's right.
We appreciate it, Joe.
You're welcome, and enjoy.
We will talk to you again when the next book is fully baked, which should be, I think I hear the oven chime singing now.
I think it is, yes.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised. Thanks so much.
Until next time.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. As Joe said, until next time, go check out Joe's DEVONthink book. I'm not going to try to do the title again. And especially check out DEVONthink if you feel the need to start to get snippets or paperless things organized. Joe and I can both recommend it, and you will love it. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard, that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.